Imagine reaching the last available shelter before a freezing night. Your children are exhausted. There is no hotel nearby, no car heater, no emergency, no second place to go. Now, remove the road, remove the phone, remove the city. You are standing in an ice age valley, and the only dry cave nearby already has smoke rising from inside. Another human family got there first. Now, the biggest danger in the valley is not a wolf. It is people. People who need the same shelter, the same firewood, the same animals, and the same chance to survive the winter. If they refuse to leave, your family may freeze outside. If you force your way in, someone may bleed before sunrise. So, what happened when humans met Neanderthals? The simple story says modern humans arrived, met a weaker species, defeated them, and took their place. Clean, dramatic, probably wrong. Because this was not one meeting. It was thousands of meetings across different valleys, seasons, and generations. Some began with smoke, some began with footprints, some began with a dead animal lying between two hungry groups. Some ended with distance, some ended with violence, and some ended with children. When Homo sapiens entered parts of Europe and Western Asia, they were not entering empty land. Neanderthals had already lived there for a very long time. They knew which caves stayed dry. They knew where herds crossed rivers. They knew which valleys trapped wind. They knew where predators waited. They knew how close you could get to a wounded animal before it turned you into part of the landscape. Homo sapiens were not walking into wilderness. They were walking into someone else's survival system. Neanderthals were not confused cave people waiting to disappear. They were local experts, strong, experienced, and adapted to a cold world that could kill a newcomer for one stupid decision. That was the position of Homo sapiens. And this cave is only one possible moment. The real story repeated across thousands of years. Before the two groups saw each other, they probably saw the sign. Old ash in a cave. Bones cracked open for marrow. Fresh footprints near water. Stone flakes beside a carcass. A herd disturbed before the hunters arrived. Today, we call that evidence. To them, it was bad news. Someone ate here before us, someone slept here before us, someone knows this valley better than us, and someone may still be nearby. Another group did not need to attack directly to become dangerous. They could take the cave first, reach the river first, push the herd away, strip the meat before your children ate, turn a safe route into a place where every shadow needed one. In the Ice Age, you did not need to lose a war to die. You only needed to lose access, lose the cave, lose the herd trail, lose the dry firewood, lose the one place protected from the wind. Being pushed into the wrong valley could be enough. Then the signs became bodies. Maybe beside a river, maybe near a fresh kill, maybe at the mouth of a cave before bad weather arrived. One group looked across the open ground and saw another kind of human. Not an animal, not a monster, something more dangerous. A stranger close enough to be familiar. Heavy bodies, powerful arms. Weapons in their hands. Adults in front, children behind. These were not armies. They were armed families. And nobody knew what the other side wanted. A raised hand might mean stop. A shout might mean leave. A step forward might be a warning. Or it might be misunderstood as an attack. There was no shared law. No translator. No neutral ground. Only distance. Fear, hunger, and weapons. The greatest danger may not have been hatred. It may have been uncertainty. Because when both sides are armed and afraid, one wrong movement is enough. One hunter steps too close. One person reaches for a spear. One side thinks the other is about to attack. And suddenly, the question is no longer, are they like us? It is, which family leaves the cave? And what happens if neither one moves? Sometimes distance held. One group backed away. The other stayed. No fight, no blood. Both survived another day. But distance became harder when food was involved. Imagine a freshly killed deer lying in the snow. One group is already cutting meat. The other arrives hungry. Walking away means gambling with your family's survival. Moving forward means gambling with your life. That is why a dead animal could become the most dangerous place in the valley. Not because of wolves, because of people. One hunter steps toward the carcass. The group around the meat tightens. Hands move closer to spear. A stone lands in the snow between. Now, nobody can pretend this is still a misunderstanding. Prehistoric violence probably did not always look like an organized battle. It may have been faster and more personal. A shove, a thrown stone, a spear raised too quickly. One person falls, the rest rushing forward, before anyone had time to decide whether fighting was still a good idea. No flags, no battle plan, no heroic speech, just fear turning into violence. And once blood appeared, the next meeting became more dangerous. The next hunter held his spear tighter. The next child was pulled farther behind the adults. The next strange footprint looked less like evidence and more like a warning. But meat was not the only resource worth fighting over. Shelter could be even more important. A carcass might feed a family for days. A good cave might keep them alive through winter. Imagine reaching shelter as freezing rain begins. Your fire is almost dead. The children cannot stop shivering. Then you see light inside. Another family is already there. They have dry ground. They have fire. They control the entrance. If they let you inside, their food disappears faster, and their children sleep beside arms strained. If they refuse, your family may spend the night outside. Today, refusing shelter sounds cruel. In the Ice Age, allowing strangers inside could endanger your own children. One group moves toward the entrance. The other blocks it. A warning shout echoes against the stone. Someone raises a spear. Someone throws a rock. And suddenly, this is not a disagreement over space. It is a fight over who survives the night. The Ice Age did not require people to hate each other. Cold was enough. Hunger was enough. Fear was enough. But Homo sapiens did not enter that struggle with an automatic advantage. Neanderthals knew the land. Imagine following animal tracks through a valley you have never seen before. The trail looks promising. Then you hear shouting ahead. By the time your group reaches a narrow pass, the hunt is already over. Neanderthals are standing around the carcass. They did not move fast. They knew where the animals were going. That was the problem. Homo sapiens had weapons. Neanderthals had the map in their head. They knew where a herd slowed down, where the ground became muddy, where a cliff forced animals into a narrow path, where hunters could wait without being seen. To the newcomers, the valley was terrain. To the people already living there, it was a tool. That knowledge gave Neanderthals control. They could reach the best hunting places first. Choose the strongest cave before bad weather arrived. Avoid dangerous routes. Move through the landscape while newcomers were still learning which direction led to food and which led to a dead end. Strength mattered too. Neanderthals were heavily built. They hunted large animals at close range. They lived in a world where getting close to food sometimes meant getting close enough for it to kill you. These were not weak people waiting to be pushed aside. One failed hunt did not just mean missing dinner. It meant weaker hunters tomorrow. Less fat for the cold, less food for children, less time before the group had to take another risk. When Homo sapiens arrived too late at a kill site, they lost more than meat. They lost time, energy, and another day of winter. So the common story begins to follow. Neanderthals were not primitive losers standing in the way of progress. They had the home advantage. But Homo sapiens may have carried an advantage that did not belong to any one valley. Connections. Not an army, not one giant truck. A network of separate groups that could exchange people, materials, information, and help. That difference mattered most after something went wrong. Imagine two groups losing an experienced hunter. Both lose meat, protection, knowledge, and a pair of working hands. But one group has relatives beyond the next valley. They know another camp. They have exchanged food, stone, partners, or information before. So the survivors leave. After days of travel, they find another fire. They receive food, they learn where the herds have moved, some stay. The group has suffered badly, but it has not disappeared. Now imagine the same loss inside a small, isolated community. There is no second camp, no nearby relatives, no safe place to join. The same dead hunter leaves the same empty place beside the fire. But this time, there is nobody outside the group to help. That is the real test. Not who wins one confrontation, who recovers after losing one. A network gives failure somewhere to go. One valley loses its animals. Another may still have food. One camp loses a skilled toolmaker. The knowledge may survive elsewhere. One group becomes too small. Its survivors may join another community instead of vanishing alone. A small group could be powerful. It could also be one accident away from collapse. Think of two modern families hit by the same disaster. One has savings, relatives nearby, and somewhere else to sleep. The other has none of those things. The disaster is identical. The recovery is not. Some archaeological evidence suggests Homo sapiens moved objects across long distances. Stone appears far from its source. Shells appear far from the coast. Similar tool traditions appear across wide areas. Those objects do not prove every detail of the social system, but they suggest that people, materials, partners, or information were moving beyond one local group. The real advantage was not moving objects. It was moving survival information before the next disaster arrived. People became the map. The first arrivals did not need to understand the whole landscape. One group found water. Another located good stone. Another discovered a safe winter route. If those groups remained connected, the lessons did not have to die with the people who learned. Information could spread. The newcomers slowly built their own. This does not mean Neanderthals were antisocial or completely isolated. They cared for injured people, shared skills, moved through large territories. The possible difference was scale. How many camps remained connected? How far could information move? How easily could survivors join another group? During a good year, that difference might barely matter. During repeated crises, it became survival equipment. Homo sapiens did not need to win every fight. They could lose a carcass, a cave, or even an entire camp. If connected groups still survived beyond the next valley, the population could return. Neanderthals could win the ground in front of them and still lose numbers across the wider landscape. The deepest advantage may not have been winning every fight. It was surviving the loss, and those networks carried more than food and information. They carried people. The distance between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals did not always remain empty. Sometimes, someone crossed it, and the proof is still alive inside us. Many people living outside Africa carry a small amount of Neanderthal DNA. That changes the story immediately. DNA cannot be left behind like a broken spear. It cannot drift into another camp with smoke. It moves through parents and children. At some point, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals had children together. Some meetings ended with distance. Some may have ended with injury. Some ended with descendants. But DNA proves contact. It does not prove romance. It does not tell us whether those encounters began with trust, desperation, capture, conflict, or survival. We should not turn this into a soft, prehistoric love story. Imagine a small group after a brutal winter. One hunter is dead. Another is injured. The fire is almost out. The animal tracks have disappeared. Then they see another fire, a larger camp, more food, more adults, more weapons. The people beside that fire are strangers. Staying outside may kill a child. Walking in may also be dangerous. That is the kind of choice survival creates, not friendship or hostility. One danger or another. Sometimes the most important border in the Ice Age was not between species. It was between the firelight and the dark. Someone steps closer. Someone lowers a spear. Someone is allowed near the fire. Maybe for one night, maybe for much longer. A person joins another camp. A child grows up between two traditions. That child later has children. The original meeting disappears from memory. The DNA continues. To the people involved, this was not gene flow between archaic populations. It was someone staying because going back was worse. Once Neanderthal ancestry entered a larger, expanding Homo sapiens population, it could travel far beyond the place where the first contact happened. A local survival decision could leave descendants thousands of kilometers away. The people involved never knew how far the result would travel. They were making local decisions. The consequences became global. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals were distinct populations. But the biological boundary between them was not sealed. The boundary existed. It just leaked. And that changes what disappearance. Neanderthals may not all have died outside Homo sapiens groups. Some may have disappeared inside them. The body survived, the ancestry survived, but the original community became smaller. Interbreeding does not explain the entire Neanderthal disappearance. Competition, violence, climate, isolation, and small population size may all have mattered, but absorption made the ending less clean. They did not all vanish outside us. Some of them vanished into us. So how does an entire human population disappear when not everyone is actually gone? It does not need to die on the same day. It only needs to stop recovering. Neanderthals appear to have lived in relatively small, scattered populations. A small group could still hunt, defend a cave, raise children, and survive difficult winter. But it had very little room for disaster. Imagine one Neanderthal camp entering autumn. The herds change direct. One hunt fails. A second ends with an experienced adult badly injured. Now there is less meat, one less hunter, and one more person who needs care. Two young adults leave to find another camp. Winter arrives before they return. the group is still alive. But it enters the cold season with fewer hands, less food, and less chance of recovery. That is how population collapse can begin. Not with everyone dead, with the group becoming slightly less capable after every loss. And this is where one injured hunter can become a population problem. In a small camp, every person is part of the survival system. One knows the winter route. Another makes the best tools. Another remembers where water remains during freezing weather. Lose one person, and the group may lose a skill, a route, a memory, and a future parent. Then the landscape changes. Herds move. Forests shift. Hunting grounds shrink. The valley in your head no longer matches the valley under your feet. An outdated map can be dangerous. Knowing where animals crossed last year does not help when they no longer come. Then Homo sapiens adds another layer of pressure. The newcomers do not need to kill every Neanderthal they meet. They only need to make survival slightly more difficult. Take one good cave. Reach one herd first. Occupy one safe river crossing. Force another group to travel farther. That may sound small, but small pressures become serious when a population is already close to the edge. A longer walk means more energy spent. Less meat means weaker adults. A weaker adult is more likely to be injured. Fewer hunters make the next hunt harder. The pressure feeds itself. Conflict could make it worse. One dead adult might be enough. One injured hunter could be an ancient violence did not create clean winners. It created damaged survivors. Even the group that kept the carcass might lose the people needed to carry it. Neanderthals did not have to lose every confrontation. They only had to recover more slowly than Homo sapiens. Then, absorption made the boundary thinner. Some Neanderthals joined Homo sapiens groups. Those individuals survived. Their children survived. But their original communities became smaller. A person did not need to die for the Neanderthal population to lose them. They only needed to stop returning. No single pressure had to destroy the Neanderthal. Pressures only had to arrive together. A climate shift moves the herds. Competition reduces access to good ground. A failed hunt weakens the camp. A conflict removes an adult. Two younger people join another group. The remaining families survive winter. But spring begins with fewer people than autumn. Then the pattern repeats. Eventually, some camps become too small to continue. They merge, they move, they disappear. Not because every person is dead, because the group can no longer replace what it keeps losing. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals disappeared from the archaeological record as a distinct human population. The story was not simple replacement. Homo sapiens competed with them, may have fought them, shared landscapes with them, had children with, and continued into a future where Neanderthals no longer existed as a separate people. 40,000 years ago, two human populations stood outside the same cave. Both were cold. Both were hungry. Both needed the shelter. Both believed they were fighting for tomorrow. Neither knew how the story would end. One population would disappear as a separate. The other would carry part of them into the future. The cave is empty. Fire is gone. The footprints disappeared thousands of years ago. But the people did not vanish as cleanly as the old story suggests. Neanderthals were not weak. They survived for hundreds of thousands of years in landscapes that punished mistakes immediately. They hunted dangerous animals, raised children through brutal winters, and kept fires alive in a world with no backup plan. That is not failure. But survival is not a trophy you win once. It has to be won again after every bad hunt, every injury, every climate shift, and every winter. So what happened when humans met Neanderthals? They did not meet once. They collided across thousands of years. Some encounters ended with distance, some with violence, some with children. One population kept recovering. The other slowly lost that ability. The final battle never happened. The outcome did. Because history is not always written by the strong. Sometimes it is written by the population that survives one more winter.